Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of TV and Film Focus. My name is Victoria Main. I'm here today with Khayman Goodsky, who is a local Indigenous filmmaker, and she is one of the participants in the upcoming Indigenous Film Series happening at AICHO. So hi, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start out with just the very basic, some very basic information about what the Indigenous Film Series is, how long it goes, where it's being held, all that kind of thing.
All right, so AICHO, the American Indian Center Housing Organization, I think I messed that up. We're partnering with the Duluth Superior Film Festival, and so we're putting on a short film festival every month. Every Wednesday starts at 5:30. It's free, and we'll be going until August, up until June, because that's when the actual film festival is happening.
Gotcha.
But we're playing all sorts of Indigenous films every Wednesday, every third Wednesday of every month.
And this is happening at the AICHO community center there.
Yeah.
You've got, these are all films that are written, directed, acted in, everything by Indigenous filmmakers.
Yes, it's very Indigenous led, which I appreciate. I feel like a lot of our films that are being made are like about Indigenous people are often written, directed, and edited by non-Indigenous people. So it's refreshing to see how much art we can pull out from actual Indigenous artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this film series will have it's featuring plenty of local work, some of which is yours, but also national, international submissions as well.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, it's very exciting.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your piece, which is going to be in the April.
Yeah, April 15th.
Okay. So tell us about your piece a little bit.
It's called Dream Wanderer. It's about a young Native woman who goes to sleep and finds herself kind of entangled with a spirit. And she keeps waking up in his dreams rather than hers. And so she has to figure out how to kind of get away from the spirit who's having a kind of negative impact on her.
Wow. That sounds interesting. Is that a short film?
Yes, it's a short film. It's 9 minutes long.
Okay.
There's no words. It's all music.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there are a number of local filmmakers that are going to be showing things in here. There's a couple of, usually, when I have guests on, one of the questions I always ask them about is, the film and production work that's going on in Duluth is really increasing right now.
Yeah.
Which is great. So are you finding that the film community is supportive of what you're doing, and are you finding that the community is working together and making stuff happen?
I feel like the community is. I'm a very small film crew. I work personally with friends and people that I know. I don't really work with strangers. The things that I do and the ideas that I want to put out there require, I have to know the person, and we have to share stories, and we have to have a bond. And that's what I try to bring to the screen. And I feel like I can't really do that working with strangers, so I don't really work outside, into the bigger film community.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk a little bit about, you've presumably, a lot of the films that are going to be in this series, and let's talk about some of the issues that Indigenous filmmakers are addressing in these films.
Yeah, like in The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open, it's about really domestic violence and how that can affect us as a people, especially our Indigenous women. The film opens up and there's this young woman standing barefoot out in the rain, and this other woman, she sees that she's being verbally harassed by her partner who had just physically abused her, and decides to take her home. And from there it just becomes this sort of intimate, how do you deal with this? How do you help a stranger, especially if you've been in that situation before? And how do we address domestic violence in a way that won't, push people away, but help, encourage people to support and, help domestic violence victims.
Well, and from what I understand, domestic violence is an issue in, you know, Native communities and Indigenous communities, and there's some cultural sensitivities around dealing with that.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of the films that are going to be part of this series are going to kind of look at these issues.
Yeah, so the Body Remembers When the World Broke Open, that deals with domestic violence. The Incredible 25th Year of Mitzi Bearclaw, I feel like that has to do with more like how Indigenous health and how we suffer from health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we go to the doctor when the doctor is openly racist and not, very helpful?
Mm-hmm.
How do we deal with these health issues that have only been present since, colonization, basically?
So it's fantastic. Do you feel like the willingness to speak about these issues and tell the stories from an Indigenous perspective? Do you feel like Natives are starting to feel their power a little bit and do that and go after that?
Yeah, and I feel like these are on the rise, which means we're feeling more and more of our power come back to us, and I feel like that'll be good, and I want to see that continue to rise. I want to see more Native filmmakers, more Indigenous writers, more Indigenous artists. I think that's so good, and I appreciate them putting on this film festival because a lot of Indigenous youth come to that, and they can see like my issues aren't invisible, and then also that there are artists out there who are making stories for them that they can relate to, and that hopefully help other people see what we go through.
Yeah. Well, and also it allows you to mentor the generation coming after you, right?
Yeah,
so
and sometimes they mentor us. So
tell me about
cool.
that.
Well, I think I have a lot of community activist members who are in their 50s, and they're like, these younger generations, they're teaching us more.
Mm-hmm.
There's a role if you have to find a younger person to mentor you as you get older, just because, technology, social issue-wise, how to effectively go out and talk to the community.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that younger generation will bring something you didn't know you needed
Sure.
to the table.
Sure. Well, so these films in this festival or series are going to be, some of these are international.
Yeah.
Do you find that is there a lot of crossover between, Indigenous issues here in the United States and all over the world? I mean,
I believe so, especially when it comes to water, fighting for our land, fighting for just our people to be healthy and
Mm-hmm.
to have safe homes. I feel like that's prevalent everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely worldwide.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about some of the films that are going to be featured in this series. Now, this series goes the third Wednesday of every month.
Yep, except June.
Except for June, when the full festival will take place in combination with Duluth Superior Film Festival thing. So let's talk a little bit about some of these films and where they come from. Where they're coming from.
All right. Well, The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open, I believed that was filmed in the cities, Minneapolis, Canada.
Oh,
so
okay.
there's a lot of films that were filmed in Canada.
Okay.
But I feel like that still has to, do with the things we deal with in the U.S.
Sure, absolutely.
Especially domestic violence and things like that.
Well, let me ask you this question. If you could, let's say you could project 5-10 years down the road, what are Native filmmakers doing? Is it one of your goals to create maybe shared production resource possibly? You know what I mean? How are you going to facilitate that? Would you like to see that?
How would I like to see the film industry in 10 years?
Yeah, and particularly as it relates to Indigenous film folks.
I hope resources get better. I hope there was an easier way to connect with other filmmakers and other Indigenous actors and things like that. I want to see more variety. Do you know what I mean?
In the content of the films?
Yeah. I'm very appreciative of films that take place on the res or take place, back in urban areas, but they talk about the res. I kind of want to see more variety. Like, what if we didn't talk about the res all the time? I know that's controversial, but not every Native was born on the res or likes to go back for the res for personal reasons.
Sure.
And I feel like that's one stereotypical thing about like Indigenous people. Like, what res are you from? If you don't go back to the res, are you really Native? And I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
So I want to see more Indigenous films take place like in other places, like the moon. What if we wrote a story about like Native people going to the moon?
Well, I was going to say, it's a very interesting concept to think about different, genres of film. Like, for instance, what would the Native sci-fi film look like?
Exactly.
The Native fantasy film, right?
Yeah, and the incredible 25th year of Mitzi Bearclaw, that kind of brings like a fantasy element to it. She has these dreams, and they're fantastic. They're so bright and like just you feel like you're there, and she's talking to these like characters who are spirits who represent something to her, and it's beautiful. It really is. And each like dream sequence takes place in a different like genre or area, and the same characters are wearing like different outfits, and it's fantastic. And that's kind of what I want to see more of.
Yeah, well, it would be great. That's a totally interesting concept to me. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while now. So what things would you need in place to help people do that, for instance, maybe?
Like I said, more resources. I think we really need to address the issues of domestic violence, missing and murdered Indigenous women, poverty. That takes a big thing. And we need to start doing better for our people so we can start focusing on other stories. It's good to remember where we came from, and I love seeing movies that take those elements and they incorporate them and our important life lessons and our stories and just do that. But there's only a certain point where your soul starts to feel like the weight of watching all these movies that have to do with like domestic violence or missing and murdered Indigenous women. And it's good to have other films out there to remind people that we're not just about that we have other outlets of creativity. There are other stories to tell. And we're not just like a doom and gloom people, but we're full of life. We're full of color. We're full of bright ideas.
And humor. Let's
yes.
get that Native American comedy going.
Yes. Even in some of these dark movies, there's moments of humor where you can't help but laugh despite what's going on, which I feel like we do that as a people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, humor, sometimes comedy saves you,
Yeah.
But, okay, so let me talk about, we've got some other local folks that are going to be showing some stuff in here too.
Yeah.
Jonathan Thunder, who I think some people know. He's an artist and filmmaker dude, and
he's an artist from Red Lake. He's married to Tashia Hart, who's also from Red Lake. They're a married couple who do fantastic artwork. He does animations, paintings. Oh my God, his paintings are phenomenal. They're very strange and they make you think. They just draw you in, and he uses these bright colors, but also with like kind of a dark background. Very, very strange paintings. But then he does children's animations, which are so bright and lively, and he's helped a lot of Ojibwe people who are trying to get the language out there bring their animations to life. So it's like language revitalization.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So there are other local folks, correct, involved in this? You, Jonathan, and before we get on to other folks, I do want to, can you talk about some of the other film projects you've done?
Yeah.
It's cool that you've done so much, on your own, basically.
Yeah. So I like to produce short films no longer than 10 minutes. My first one was actually 20 minutes long. It featured Jonathan Thunder. It only had 4 characters, and I played a part in it. We were all Indigenous, and we wore masks from our clans. So I wore a bear mask, and it was very cool. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done. And after that, I just hit the spark. and just wanted to keep making more films. So I asked my friends to contribute their time, and obviously their effort, because it's a lot of effort to make a film together.
Yep.
And we just make these wonderful films. And I work with a local punk band called Moondogs. It's led by Jesse White, who's also an Indigenous artist, and I really like working with him, and he helps bring really the spark to my films.
Cool.
So I like working with mostly Indigenous artists and musicians if I can, and then if I have to go to like non-Indigenous people to help bring the story to life, I will. But I really think it's important to use Indigenous people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you are going to be a part of this series, your work, Jonathan Thunder. Are there any other local folks whose work is going to be exhibited at the during the series? We've got Ivy off camera here, so that's why we keep looking over there. We're not crazy.
It's Liz Jacqua is she and some Indigenous women from Fond du Lac Reservation produced a film called Birthing Sovereignty, and it's about traditional reconnecting back to traditional birthing practices, Ojibwe birthing practices, and spirituality, and it's a 20-minute film. I think it's less than 20 minutes, and it's just beautiful. It has local Indigenous women, and they're making tikanagins, which are the baby cradles, traditional baby cradles.
So this Liz Jokel, how do you say it? Jacqua?
Yep.
From Fond du Lac,
Reservation.
yeah, and college too. Does she not? Is she not involved?
Yeah, she works at the college.
Okay. I would love to have her on the show
Yes.
at some point.
She's
She's on my list. I'm going through all the local filmmakers, and she's on my list. But let's talk. Can you talk about her film, her piece a little bit? As Ivy was saying, the birthing piece.
I haven't seen her piece.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
Yeah, I just know that she's a fantastic artist.
Mm-hmm.
She's been doing art for as long as I can remember. She's a fantastic singer. She has a band. She's also part of a women's hand drum group out in Fond du Lac, and they go and they sing the most beautiful songs at ceremonies and events, and it's really powerful when they all show up.
Yeah.
So she's an amazing member of the Indigenous community, and she's so fantastic.
Cool.
So I'm sure whatever she makes
Yeah.
will be amazing.
It sounds very interesting. So hopefully now, as you know, is this the first annual film series that you're doing, or this is the third?
Yep,
I don't have my
the third.
glasses on. I can't see your fingers, but
Yeah.
so hopefully as this continues on, that it'll grow and grow and grow.
Yeah. I hope it'll be one of the film festivals where people are like, I got to get my film in there.
Yeah.
Or we got to get there and we have to see this, you know? I want so many people to see all these wonderful works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds great. Is there anything else you'd like folks to know about this series?
It's fun. Most of it's fun. Some of the stories are a little grim, but they're realistic. And they're done by wonderful people.
Well, you know, there are social issues that I think it will help people to know what's being experienced in the Native community and in other communities elsewhere. So, you know, that's a very good thing.
Yeah.
Educate folks and entertain at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's nothing else you'd like to say about it, if there's nothing we've missed here, I'll wrap her up.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
I hope a lot of people come to these film festivals.
So let's remind people again what the location is of this.
Yeah, we're at AICHO, 202 West 2nd Street here in Duluth, Minnesota. Every third Wednesday of every month up until August, we'll be playing either a short feature from a local Indigenous artist and then a longer feature, usually from an international or further away artists. It's free. And then in June, we won't be doing one because it'll be the actual Duluth Superior Film Festival. That'll be that week-long, ordeal.
Gotcha. And there's one more thing I want to ask. How do you feel? Do you feel like culturally, it's difficult for Indigenous people to maybe feel free to express?
Yeah.
I'd like you to talk a little bit about the culture around, self-expression and emotional expression and.
Yeah, well, I feel like, when I was in art school, I was trying to produce art, but a lot of my teachers were not Indigenous, and so we had to have long conversations about what I was trying to create and like what that means, and some of them couldn't understand. It's kind of why the reason I dropped out of school to do this on my own. I feel like a lot of people, when they try to produce, culturally meaningful stuff, it could get taken in a less receptive way, or a lot of people will just walk away and be like, I don't get it. There's a lot of inside jokes within our community.
Sure.
That people are like, yeah, that was funny, but I didn't really get it,
Yeah. So there's a certain sort of maybe language, almost language, translation, cultural translation that needs to happen.
Yeah, and I think it can be hard for non-Indigenous people to come and try to sit through 2 hours of that and then just walk away confused, which I think is why, these Indigenous film festivals, why they're so small, is because not a lot of people are willing to step outside their comfort boxes and come view our culture.
Well, and it strikes me too that if non-Indigenous folks go to this and then they have that confusion,
Yeah.
That some sort of discussion structure or ability to have conversation and understand, in a smaller group is maybe not such a bad thing,
Yeah.
right? Because
as long as the conversation is respectful and appropriate.
right,
But I feel a lot of people are afraid to even try to question their.
they're afraid to ask.
Yes.
Because they don't want to.
Come off as offensive or
Looking stupid, like I didn't understand what that meant. Can you tell me what that meant?
yeah.
Whereas I don't have any problem looking stupid and saying,
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I'm,
she said.
I'm usually like, can you explain that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's a very healthy thing for actual face-to-face exchanges to happen.
Yeah.
Where a non-native person says, I didn't understand what that meant. Can you explain it?
Yeah, exactly.
And
I feel like you come away understanding more, and it's healthy to get a different perspective than your own. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, maybe for now, having that smaller scale, and given people an environment to talk in which they're comfortable. If you're at a festival with 10,000 people or something, it's
Yeah.
very difficult to have maybe meaningful conversation, right? So maybe it's not so bad that it's still growing because that provides some different opportunities for interaction for people.
I agree. Sometimes with a smaller group, you can actually communicate a lot better. So.
But it's good to get a different perspective. So
Exactly.
let's get people out to go to the film series, the Indigenous Film Series, starting Wednesday the 18th
Yep.
at AICHO. Go there. They're every month on the third Wednesday of the month. So go to the festival, learn some stuff, talk to people who are not like you, and see some great work.
Yeah.
Does that seem fair?
That seems exactly right on.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Khayman.
Thanks for
I
having us.
appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing some of this stuff. And we can put something on our website. Let me know what you've got that we can throw on our website. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time on TV and Film Focus.